The girl's belly began to grow at an alarming rate. She went from discovering she was pregnant to the baby growing and being born in just 20 minutes. Even stranger, when the doctor cut her abdomen open with a scalpel, the wound healed instantly. On the beach, the children who were playing took only a few hours to turn into teenagers. All of this made the people realize that something was very wrong with that beach. The story began with a couple, Guy and Priska, who took their two children, Maddox, an 11-year-old girl, and Trent, a 6-year-old boy, to a luxurious tropical resort. The resort manager greeted them in person and told the staff to bring them special welcome drinks. Everything there made them feel excited. The two children had a lot of fun and even met Idlib, the manager's nephew. The next day, the manager thoughtfully organized a private beach for them. It was a nature reserve surrounded by strange rocky cliffs with breathtaking views. Another family joined them, Dr. Charles, his young wife Crystal, their daughter Kara, and Crystal's mother, Agnes. The manager arranged a private car to send them all, but the driver did not take them all the way. Instead, he stopped outside the beach, made an excuse, and left. They had no choice but to carry their luggage and walk on foot. They crossed a forest and reached a narrow path formed by cliffs. Upon passing through the passage, they entered a hidden paradise. The manager had not lied. The place looked like heaven on earth. Then they noticed that someone was already on the beach. Maddox recognized him immediately. He was a rapper named Midsize Sedan, but he looked cold and distant, with blood dripping from his nose. Maddox and Trent quickly became friends with the doctor's daughter, Kara. They played hide and seek near the rocks. While Trent was hiding in the water, he didn't notice something floating behind him. When he turned around and saw it, he screamed in terror. Everyone ran when they heard the scream. They were shocked to see the corpse of a blonde woman floating in the water. The rapper approached and did not seem surprised at all by the girl's death, since only he and the blonde woman had been on the beach before the others arrived.
For the record, I know most people who die on vacation die from... I'm an actuary. I calculate people's insurance rates based on their risk profile.
She was in me.
Guy pulled out his phone to call the police, but realized there was no signal. At that moment, another couple arrived at the beach. The man was Jaren, a nurse, and the woman was Patricia, a psychologist. When they heard that someone had died, they panicked and tried to leave immediately. But as soon as Jaren entered the canyon path, he suddenly felt dizzy. When he woke up again, he was back on the beach with no memory of what had just happened. From that moment on, strange things began to happen one after another. First, Crystal's mother, Agnes, suddenly stopped breathing. Although Charles did his best to save her, he couldn't bring her back. The second strangest thing happened when Priska realized her children had disappeared. She asked Jaren and Patricia if they had seen Maddox and Trent. The couple shrugged and said, "Aren't your children right in front of you?" Priska looked and was completely shocked. Her children were only 6 and 11 years old, but in a short time, they had become teenagers. The rapper saw this and immediately tried to flee. Charles noticed and thought he must be hiding something, so he chased him without hesitation. But as soon as they entered the canyon, both of them, just like Jaren before, fainted and ended up back on the beach. Charles was certain the rapper was guilty. He pulled out a knife and slashed his face, but a second later, the wound healed instantly. Strange things kept happening, and everyone began to panic. They gathered and tried to understand what was going on. As they talked, they realized they all had something in common. First, every family had someone with a chronic illness. The rapper had hemophilia, Patricia had epilepsy, Charles had mental health issues, and Priska had a growing tumor in her abdomen. They had all purchased medication from a company called Warren & Warren, and then won a free vacation. Just then, someone noticed a light flashing at the top of the distant mountain. Was someone watching them? At that moment, they noticed the body of the girl they had found earlier. In just 3 hours, it had decomposed into a pile of white bone. Everyone was stunned. Normally, a body would take at least 7 years to rot that way. It seemed that time moved strangely on that beach. Based on the rate of the corpse's decomposition, 3 hours were equivalent to 7 years. So, on that beach, half an hour was more than a year in normal time. This explained why Agnes died suddenly. The beach accelerated cellular aging, and she went straight to dying of old age. It also explained why the children grew so fast in a few hours. Just then, Priska fainted. She had a 3-centimeter tumor, but now her belly swelled before their eyes. Charles performed surgery on her immediately, but as he cut her open, the wound healed almost instantly. He had no choice but to cut again. This time, everyone helped hold the wound open, and they finally managed to extract the tumor. Indeed, it had grown as large as a soccer ball. A second later, Priska was completely healed, like a medical miracle. Meanwhile, Trent and Cora were lying together. When they came out of the tent, Kara's belly was huge. She looked 5 or 6 months pregnant. Everyone was shocked. Before they could react, Kara went into labor. Tragically, the baby died less than a minute after being born because it could not survive the rapid aging of the beach. Kara could not accept her baby's death and climbed the steep cliff, desperately trying to escape. But just as she was about to reach the top, she froze and stopped moving. The mysterious force of the beach made everyone feel hopeless again. Unable to handle the shock, Charles had a mental breakdown and stabbed the rapper to death. As more people died, Jaren could no longer sit still. He had to find a way to escape. Since the land path and the cliffs didn't work, he decided to try the sea. Ignoring Patricia's objections, he bravely swam toward the ocean. The remaining people tried to put the pieces together. Based on what they knew, everyone had won a vacation prize from the pharmaceutical company. Combined with the mysterious figure they kept seeing on the mountain, they reached a terrifying theory. Everything was a conspiracy by the pharmaceutical company, and they were being used as human lab rats. At that moment, a massive wave washed Jaren's body back to shore. It seemed that escaping by sea was also impossible. When Patricia saw her husband's corpse, she couldn't handle the shock. Her epilepsy was triggered instantly, and she died there too. After going through one trauma after another, night finally fell, and Charles lost control completely. He grabbed a knife and began attacking people. Prisca reacted quickly and slashed Charles's arm with a rusty blade. The infection from the rust spread throughout his body, and he began to convulse before dying painfully. Charles's wife, Crystal, suffered an even worse fate. She had been a young, beautiful woman during the day, but now she looked like a living corpse. Because she had undergone multiple full-body cosmetic surgeries previously, when her body aged rapidly, all the side effects exploded at once. She died in extreme agony. By now, only Guy's family of 4 remained alive. As their bodies aged, Guy's eyesight deteriorated quickly, and Prisca's hearing grew much worse. The two remembered their lives, all the arguments, the fights, and the regrets, and in that moment, they let it all go. In the end, they held each other and faced the end of their lives together. When the sky brightened again, Maddox and Trent were already middle-aged people. They only had a few hours left to live. Maddox suggested that before they died, they should build their favorite sandcastle one last time, just as they did when they were children, or more accurately, as they did yesterday. While they were playing, Trent remembered that before coming yesterday, the manager's nephew, Idlib, had given him a letter. It contained a secret code that only the two of them could understand. After translating it, Trent was surprised. It said, "My uncle doesn't like coral." Was this Idlib's secret message telling them how to escape? They knew they were going to die anyway, so they decided to take the risk. They jumped into the sea and actually discovered a tunnel through the coral. They swam with all their might, but suddenly, Maddox's clothes got snagged on the coral. Trent had to go back to save her. Meanwhile, on the distant mountain, the man monitoring them finally showed his face. It turned out to be the driver who took them to the beach. He checked his watch and calculated the time, making sure the siblings were already dead. Then he called the resort manager. He reported, "Trial number 73 is over." Just as they suspected, behind this resort was a secret laboratory of a pharmaceutical company. A few years ago, they discovered the strange secret of the beach. The rocks around the beach contained special minerals that produced radiation that accelerated cellular aging. The radiation circle only worked one way. Once inside, people couldn't leave. Anyone who tried to leave fainted instantly, so the pharmaceutical company devised an evil plan. They held fake prize draws to bring in groups of sick people for a free vacation. Remember when Guy's family arrived and the waitress served them special drinks? Those drinks contained experimental drugs specifically designed for each patient. Because the beach accelerated aging, it drastically shortened the testing time. For example, after this trial, the manager excitedly announced that their new epilepsy drug worked perfectly. Patricia, who had epilepsy, didn't have a single seizure during 8 hours on the beach, which in normal time was equivalent to 16 years. No one in the lab felt sorry for the innocent lives lost. They were all thrilled with the results. The manager happily prepared to receive the next group of guests. But just as the waitress was bringing out the new special welcome drinks, someone knocked the tray to the floor. It was Maddox and Trent. It turned out that underwater, Trent used all his strength to break the coral, and the two finally escaped. They immediately sought out the police and exposed the terrifying conspiracy of the pharmaceutical company. The souls of those who died on the beach could finally rest in peace.